The morning began like any other on Colony 9, quiet, gray, and cold. Dr. Samuel Harris sat alone in his small workshop, surrounded by tools, wires, and half-finished machines. Outside, the wind carried dust across the barren plains. The sky had no birds, no sound, only silence. Harris was fixing a broken drone when he heard it. A soft sound, almost like a whimper. At first he thought it was the wind, but then he heard it again, a faint cry, weak, afraid. He put down his tool and walked to the door. When he opened it, his heart almost stopped. There, lying on the cold metal floor outside, was a small creature. It was no animal, no human. It looked like a child, but not from Earth. Its skin was pale blue and faintly glowing as if light lived under it. One arm was missing, replaced by broken metal pieces. Its large silver eyes looked up at him, filled with fear and pain. For a moment, Harris froze. His mind raced through every memory of the colony rules. No contact with alien life forms. Report any sighting immediately. But the child was bleeding, and if that glowing liquid was blood, bone, and trembling in pain. He could see it was dying. Hey, it's okay, Harris said softly, his voice shaking. He knelt beside the creature, unsure if it could even understand him. You're hurt. I'll help you. The child blinked slowly as if trying to process his words. Then with its remaining hand, it reached out and held a small crystal, glowing faintly in pink and blue light. The crystal pulsed slow at first, then faster like a heartbeat. Harris stared at it. What is that? He whispered. The crystal seemed to react to his voice, flashing brighter. Then suddenly the light dimmed again and the child's head fell to the side. No, stay with me, he said quickly. He lifted the small body carefully and carried it inside the workshop. The child was lighter than he expected, too light, like a mix of bone and metal. Its breathing was shallow, uneven. Harris laid it on his work table and rushed to grab his medical tools. He was a biomechanical engineer, not a doctor, but he knew enough to help. His hands moved fast, cleaning the wounds, checking the strange metal part attached to its shoulder. It looked like technology, smooth silver but not human-made. He examined the damaged arm. The wires inside looked like veins, the metal part seemed alive, pulsing softly. It was unlike anything he'd ever seen. This is impossible, he muttered. It's part machine, part living tissue. The child's eyes opened slightly. Man? The voice was weak, metallic, like two tones at once. Harris leaned closer, shocked. You can speak? The alien child winced, trying to lift its broken arm. Hurts, please. His heart twisted. He didn't know what it was or where it came from, but he couldn't let it die here. Don't worry, he whispered. I'll fix this. He placed the glowing crystal near the work table light. The crystal pulsed again, now matching the rhythm of the child's breathing. It was almost like it was alive, connected to the child somehow. Harris turned to his shelves, pulling out spare prosthetic parts. He had built artificial limbs for colonists before, but never for a being like this. Let's see if human tech can work on alien biology, he said to himself. The hours passed in silence, broken only by the soft hum of machines. Harris worked carefully, connecting circuits, adjusting sensors, and shaping a small metallic arm to match the child's body. His eyes burned with focus. He used materials from an old exploration drone, light, flexible, and strong. When the arm was ready, he held it beside the child. All right, little one. Let's see if this fits. The connection was delicate. As he fused the wires to the organic tissue, the crystal on the table glowed brighter. Energy surged through the room and the lights flickered. What the? Harris gasped, but he didn't stop. He could feel warmth spreading through his hands, almost like the crystal was guiding him. He followed its rhythm, connecting the last joint carefully. Finally, the light faded. The workshop grew still. The child's chest rose slowly, then fell. For a moment, Harris thought he had failed. Then the new arm twitched. Once. Twice. The child opened its silver eyes and looked at him. A small tear of glowing liquid rolled down its cheek. Better? Harris asked quietly. The alien child nodded weakly. Then it lifted the crystal again, now glowing brighter than ever, and held it toward him. The light grew stronger, filling the room with a hum that shook the walls. Harris stepped back, shielding his eyes, and just as the glow reached its peak, he felt something deep in his chest, a strange vibration, as if the ground beneath him was answering the crystal's call. Outside, far in the clouds above the colony, something stirred. A sound like thunder rolled across the sky. Harris turned toward the window, fear rising inside him, whatever that crystal had called. It was coming. The storm outside grew worse as Dr. Harris closed the steel door of his workshop. The alien child was resting on the work table, its new arm still glowing faintly from the energy that had flowed through it. Harris stood beside it, breathing heavily. His hands shook, not from exhaustion but from fear. What had he just done? He knew the colony's law. Any alien life form must be reported immediately. But what could he have done? Watch the child die? Turn away like a machine? He looked at the creature, its small chest rising and falling, softly glowing with life again. The new arm moved slightly, almost naturally. The circuits and living tissue had blended perfectly, something no human tech should have been able to do. This shouldn't even work, Harris muttered under his breath. Our tech and theirs. They're not meant to mix. The alien child stirred and opened its large silver eyes. It blinked at him slowly, confused but calm. "Huh, man?" It said, the voice still weak, soft like a whisper through water. "Yes," Harris answered quietly. "Human, my name is Harris." The child pointed to itself. "Leary. Leary," he repeated, the name sounding strange but gentle. "You're safe now. I fixed your arm." Leary looked down at her new limb. Her fingers flexed open and closed, the motion smooth, natural. Then she looked up again, eyes bright with something Harris couldn't name. "Thank you," those two words made Harris freeze. It wasn't the sound, it was the meaning. Somehow she understood him. Somehow their languages connected through emotion alone. But before he could ask more, the floor trembled. A faint vibration rolled through the metal plates under his feet. The lights flickered again. Harris frowned and looked out the narrow window. The sky had turned darker, heavy clouds swirling above the horizon. Lightning cracked, but the light wasn't natural. It was blue, sharp, almost alive. Something was out there. He turned back to the child. "Leary, what did you do with that crystal?" Leary tilted her head. "Called Mother." The word hit Harris like ice water. "Mother?" He repeated slowly. "As in your mother?" The child nodded weakly. "She come. Find me." Harris's chest tightened. He didn't know if mother meant one person or an entire alien race. Either way, something powerful was now heading for them. He rushed to his communicator. "This is Dr. Harris at Outpost Sector 3. I need immediate contact with Command." Then he stopped himself. If he called Command, they would take Leary away. They would put her in a lab, dissect her, break her apart for research. He looked at her again. She was still a child, lost and scared, looking at him with trust in her eyes. He turned off the communicator. "No," he whispered. "They won't touch you." He began pacing across the workshop. His mind raced. If her people come and find humans keeping her prisoner, we're all dead. If they think we hurt her, it's over. He stopped, looking at the crystal again. It was glowing brighter now, almost pulsing in time with the storm outside. Leary sat up slowly. "You afraid?" Harris forced a smile. "A little. But I've been afraid before." The child looked confused. "You help? But fear? That's how humans work," he said softly. "We do what's right even when we're scared." The lights flickered again. Outside, the sound grew louder, like engines or wings or both. He walked back to the work table and knelt in front of her. "Listen, Leary. If your people arrive, you have to tell them I helped you. Tell them I didn't hurt you. Promise me that." Leary blinked slowly, her metallic pupils glowing faintly. "Promise." Harris smiled sadly. "Good, let's hope that's enough." Then the workshop's alarms began to scream. A red light filled the room. "Unidentified energy signature approaching the colony," the AI voice announced. Harris ran to the window again. The clouds above had parted, revealing something massive descending from the sky. Not a ship of metal, but something alive, glowing with veins of light. It looked like a living creature, large enough to cast a shadow over half the settlement. The colonists outside were shouting, pointing their weapons at the sky. Harris turned back to Leary. "Your mother's here, isn't she?" Leary nodded once, her expression calm, almost peaceful. "Mother come. She find me." The building shook again as the creature touched the ground somewhere beyond the horizon. The air pressure changed, making Harris's ears ring. He looked at Leary, then at the communicator on the desk. His finger hovered above the emergency alert. One press, and the military would arrive. But if he pressed it, they would attack first. And if they attacked, they would all die. He lowered his hand. "All right," he whispered to himself. "No military, no panic. I'll face this myself." He took a deep breath and looked at the small alien girl. "You said your mother is coming. Then I'll meet her. I'll explain everything." Leary tilted her head again. "Mother and strong. Not like you." Harris gave a weak smile. "I figured as much." Outside, the wind howled and the colony shook. The light from the sky grew brighter, until it filled the room in a pale, golden glow. Dr. Harris stood at the window, watching as something enormous and beautiful descended from the clouds, wings of light, eyes like stars, and a voice that shook the ground. The Queen had come. The ground trembled as light from the heavens spilled across the colony. Every sensor in the outpost screamed warnings, but Dr. Harris barely heard them. His eyes were fixed on the storm above, a storm that wasn't made of rain or thunder, but of light and sound that pulsed like a heartbeat. Something alive was descending. Through the thick clouds, shapes moved, smooth, glowing, and far too graceful to be ships. The air shimmered with blue fire as energy danced across the sky. Then all at once, silence. The storm stopped, the wind froze. Even the dust seemed to hang in the air. Harris stepped away from the window, his chest tight. He could feel the presence, heavy, powerful, intelligent, pressing against his mind like a thought that didn't belong to him. He turned to Leary. The little alien sat on the table, her crystal pulsing faster than before. Her new arm shimmered with faint silver light as if reacting to something unseen. "Leary," Harris said quietly. "Is that her?" Leary nodded slowly. "Mother, come." A low hum rolled through the walls, deep and soft like the breath of something enormous. Then a voice echoed inside Harris's mind, not in words but in feeling, warm, sad, powerful. "My child." "Where are you?" Harris stumbled backward. What was that?" Leary looked at him. "She speak?" "In here," she said, touching her temple. "You here too?" He nodded, breath trembling. "Yes." Before he could say more, the door control blinked red. A metallic voice shouted from the colony's speakers. "Warning! Unknown life form approaching perimeter. All security teams mobilize." Outside, soldiers were already running, their weapons glowing as they aimed at the horizon. The ground cracked under heavy vibrations. Harris rushed out of the workshop, shielding his eyes. And then he saw it. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't even something that belonged in space. It was alive. A creature of light and metal, larger than the colony itself, stood beyond the outer wall. Its wings shimmered like glass, stretching across the sky. Its body was shaped like flowing armor, but it moved with the grace of a living being, and from its chest stepped something humanoid, tall, elegant, and radiant. She wore no armor, yet her very skin glowed like starlight. Her eyes burned with gold fire. The Queen. The soldiers froze, their weapons trembling in their hands. Even the machines seemed to bow before her presence. The Queen's gaze turned toward the colony, scanning, searching, and then stopping on Harris's small workshop. Her eyes glowed brighter. "My child is there." Harris ran back inside, heart pounding. Leary was standing now, looking out the window, her face calm. "She find me," Leary whispered softly. "You're sure she won't?" Harris stopped as the workshop roof began to shake. Dust rained down. Then, impossibly, the metal roof opened itself, bending like paper. A beam of golden light fell through, and from it the Queen descended. Harris stumbled backward, shielding his face from the blinding light. When it dimmed, he looked up, and his breath caught. She was standing right there. The alien Queen was easily twice his height, her body made of both flesh and energy. Her face was beautiful and terrifying, her voice echoing like 100 tones in one. The room filled with a strange warmth, and every machine fell silent. The Queen looked down at him. "You are human," she said, her voice layered like music. Harris nodded slowly. "Yes." Her golden eyes shifted toward Leary, who stepped forward. "Mother," she said quietly, her voice trembling. The Queen knelt, her massive hand hovering near Leary's face. "My child, you were broken. Now you are whole." She turned her gaze to Harris. "You repaired her?" "Yes," Harris said, trying not to shake. "She was hurt. I couldn't let her die." For a moment, the Queen said nothing. Then she stood tall, her gaze hardening. "You used your own life energy to bind her limb." Harris blinked. "My what?" She raised one hand. Golden light flickered between her fingers. Our kind's metal lives by harmony. When you touched her broken flesh with your tools, your essence connected to hers. Your years will fade faster now. Harris felt a chill. He hadn't known. He looked down at his hands and they were trembling, pale, weak. Still, he managed a faint smile. Then it was worth it. The Queen tilted her head. You would give your life for one not of your kind? Harris nodded. Life is life. Doesn't matter what form it takes. For a long time the Queen stared at him. Her golden eyes softened, not with pity but with something deeper. Respect. She turned back to her daughter and spoke softly in her own tongue. Leary smiled, her eyes glowing brighter than ever. Then the Queen said, You have done what few would dare. For that, human, I owe you a debt. She stepped closer, towering over him, her energy humming in the air. Tomorrow your kind will know that mercy does not go unseen among the stars. Then she raised her hand and the entire workshop lit up like a sunrise. When the light faded, she was gone. Only the faint smell of ozone remained, and the sound of the child's crystal humming softly on the table. Harris sank to his knees, exhausted. Outside, the colony was silent. The storm had passed, but deep in the sky something golden still lingered, watching. The Queen had found her child. And humanity had just been noticed by something far greater than they could imagine. The morning after the storm was too quiet. No birds, no wind, not even the hum of the colony's generators. Everything had stopped working overnight. Dr. Harris stood outside his workshop, staring at the empty sky. The clouds had cleared, but a golden haze still shimmered faintly in the air, like the afterglow of a dream. His machines were dead, his tools powerless. Even his communicator gave only static. Something had changed. Behind him, Leary sat on the steps, her new arm glowing faintly under the sun. She was stronger now, standing straighter, her eyes brighter than before. She was no longer trembling or scared. She was waiting. Harris turned to her. Is she coming back? Leary nodded slowly. Mother never leave child behind. Harris sighed, rubbing his tired face. Then I guess we better hope she's in a forgiving mood. He looked toward the colony's center. Soldiers were everywhere, setting up defensive cannons and shields, whispering in fear. Nobody dared speak too loud. The command tower had already sent word. Prepare for an invasion. But Harris knew it wasn't an invasion. Not yet. Still, he couldn't shake the image from last night. The Queen's face glowing like a star. Her voice inside his mind. Her words heavy with something more than power. Respect, perhaps. Or warning. He went back into the workshop, trying to think. His body ached, his hands were pale. He could feel her words echoing through him. Your life energy will fade faster now. He didn't regret it, but he couldn't ignore it either. Every breath felt just a little heavier than before. Leary, he said softly, if your mother comes again, will she talk to me? The child tilted her head. Mother see all. She'd decide. Before he could reply, a deep sound rolled through the air. Not thunder, not machinery, but a tone so low it made the ground vibrate. Every soldier froze. The air shimmered with gold light again. And then it came. The sky split open, not with fire or metal, but with living light. A vast form descended, enormous, elegant, and impossible. It wasn't flying. It was floating, as if gravity no longer dared to touch it. The people of Colony 9 fell silent. No one moved. No one even breathed. From the heart of that glowing giant came several smaller figures. Tall, graceful beings, their skin like polished glass, and eyes burning with silver light. They landed softly, their feet never quite touching the ground, alien royalty, and in their center, surrounded by a field of shimmering energy, walked the Queen. Every human instinct screamed to kneel or run. Her presence pressed against their minds, not like speech, but like an emotion. Calm yet commanding, powerful yet mournful. The Queen's gaze swept across the colony. Weapons were raised, hands trembling. Her voice echoed in every head at once. Who healed my daughter? The soldiers looked around nervously. Nobody answered. The command officer hesitated, then barked, Weapons ready! Protect the colony. But before anyone could fire, Harris stepped forward. He could feel his heart hammering in his chest. Every step toward her felt like walking into sunlight too bright to endure. Still, he moved. I did, he said, his voice steady but quiet. The Queen's golden eyes turned toward him. For a moment all sound vanished. The entire colony seemed to hold its breath. She walked closer, slow, silent, the air shimmering with each step. When she stopped before him, Harris had to tilt his head back just to meet her gaze. You are the one, she said, her tone layered with strange harmony. The one who gave life where death had claimed. I just helped her, he said. She needed a limb. I made one. You gave her more than a limb, the Queen said. You gave her part of yourself, Harris swallowed. If that's true, then I'm glad. She deserved to live. For a moment, the Queen was silent, her expression unreadable, her golden energy flickering faintly. Behind her, the alien guards shifted uneasily, their weapons glowing. They were ready to fight if their Queen commanded it, but she didn't. Instead, she lowered her hand and extended it toward him. The air shimmered around her fingers, warm and bright. You are unlike your kind, she said softly. Your species takes. You gave. She turned slightly toward her guards and spoke in her own tongue. The sound was musical, flowing like water. The guards lowered their weapons instantly. Then she faced Harris again. You risked your life for mine. For that I grant you this. A sphere of golden light appeared between her hands, small and glowing like a miniature sun. She held it out. This is a seed of understanding. When your kind learns to listen, it will bloom. Harris reached out carefully. The light didn't burn. It was warm, alive, like holding a heartbeat. The Queen looked past him toward the colony. Tell your leaders this. We came not for war, but for truth. And then she turned to her daughter. Leary, come. Leary hesitated. She looked at Harris and the man who had saved her, then back at her mother. Can I say goodbye? She asked softly. The Queen nodded once. Leary ran to Harris, her eyes shining. You help me. You make me whole. Not forget, Harris smiled weakly. Take care of yourself, little one. As she stepped back into the Queen's light, Harris could feel the air grow lighter again. The storm of energy around them began to fade. The Queen looked down at him one last time. We will remember the human who chose compassion over fear. Then, with a wave of golden light, she and her kind vanished into the sky. The colony remained silent for a long time. No one spoke. No one moved. Dr. Harris looked down at the glowing sphere in his hands. It pulsed gently, like the beat of two hearts, human and alien. Now bound by a single act of kindness, he whispered to himself, maybe mercy really can reach the stars. The night after the Queen's departure was not peaceful. Though the golden light had faded from the sky, its memory lingered in every corner of Colony 9. Machines flickered weakly, power grids stuttered, and the air itself hummed with a strange, quiet energy. No one spoke of what happened. No one dared. But Dr. Harris couldn't sleep. He sat at his workbench staring at the glowing sphere the Queen had left behind. It pulsed softly like a heartbeat. Every time it throbbed, a faint warmth touched his fingers. Comforting yet unsettling. He had tried scanning it with his tools, but the readings were nonsense. The sphere wasn't metal, crystal, or energy as humans knew it. It was something alive. He remembered the Queen's words. When your kind learns to listen, it will bloom. He had no idea what that meant. Outside, the colony was tense. Soldiers patrolled in silence. The commander had ordered a full report to Earth Command, but their transmissions kept failing. Every time they tried to send a signal, it bounced back, distorted by the golden residue left in the atmosphere. It was as if the Queen had left a shadow behind, a reminder that they were being watched. Harris leaned back in his chair and rubbed his tired eyes. His hands still shook sometimes, and his body felt weaker than before. The Queen had warned him that his life energy had been drained, and he could feel it now. His heartbeat felt slower, heavier. Still, he didn't regret saving Leary. He looked up when he heard a sound. Soft footsteps outside his workshop. He frowned. No one should be out this late. Who's there? He called. The door slid open and a soldier stepped inside holding a blaster. His uniform was scorched, his face pale. Dr. Harris, the man said, you need to come with me. The commander wants to see you. Harris stood slowly. At this hour? It's urgent. He followed the soldier through the dimly lit streets. The wind had stopped again and the air felt thick, heavy. When they reached the command tower, Harris noticed something strange. The walls were glowing faintly like veins of light running through them. "What happened?" he asked. The soldier didn't answer. He just pointed to the central chamber. Inside, the commander stood before a massive monitor. On the screen was a storm, not in the sky but deep in space. A swirl of golden light moving toward their sector. Harris's stomach tightened. He knew that color. "It started a few hours ago," the commander said grimly. "We've detected energy signatures identical to the ones from last night, and they're growing stronger. It's heading straight for us." Harris stepped closer. "Maybe it's not an attack. Maybe it's a message." The commander turned sharply. "A message? You think that thing they sent into our orbit is friendly?" "They said they came for truth," Harris replied. "Maybe this is the test." The commander frowned. "A test?" Harris nodded slowly, remembering the Queen's tone. "She said we had to listen. What if this storm isn't meant to destroy us? What if it's meant to see how we react?" Before the commander could answer, alarms blared through the room. The storm had reached the outer atmosphere. The ground rumbled. The lights flickered again. Outside, people screamed through the window. Harris saw the golden storm fill the horizon, a wall of light rolling over the plains, swallowing everything in its path. The commander shouted, "Activate shields! Prepare for impact!" Harris grabbed the glowing sphere from his pocket and held it tightly. The pulse inside it had grown faster, matching the rhythm of the storm outside. "Stop," Harris yelled. "Don't fire at it?" But it was too late. The defense cannons erupted, sending streams of plasma into the glowing wall. For a moment, the air turned white, then exploded with a force that threw everyone to the ground. When Harris opened his eyes, the sky was burning gold. But not with fire, with light. The sphere in his hand glowed brighter than ever before, almost blinding. He heard a voice, not aloud, but inside his mind. "Your kind still chooses fear." He looked around. The soldiers lay motionless, stunned but alive. The storm had stopped moving. It hovered above the colony like a living sun. Then a figure began to form within it, tall, luminous, with eyes like molten stars. The Queen. But she was not the same as before. This was not her full self, only her projection, a being made of pure light. Her voice filled the air. "We offered peace and you met it with weapons. Is this how humans prove themselves?" The commander struggled to stand. "You invaded our skies." "You were tested," the Queen replied. "You failed." The golden storm flickered. For a moment it seemed she would end everything right there. But then her gaze turned to Harris. He was still kneeling, clutching the glowing sphere. "Wait," he said, "please, give us another chance." The Queen looked at him for a long time. "Why do you speak for them?" "Because I believe we can learn," Harris said weakly. "Fear is easy, but compassion takes courage. You saw that in me once and see it again." The storm grew silent. Then the Queen raised her hand. The golden light dimmed slightly, her voice softened. "You, human, are our test. Show them how to listen." And just like that, the storm folded into the sky, disappearing into a trail of shimmering dust. The lights in the colony came back on. The air was calm again. Harris sat there, breathing hard, the sphere still pulsing faintly in his palm. He finally understood. The Queen hadn't come to destroy them. She had come to see if humanity was ready, to see if they could rise beyond fear. And tonight he realized that test had only just begun. The storm was gone. The colony stood still beneath the pale dawn light, quiet as if the world itself was holding its breath. Dr. Harris sat on the cracked metal floor, his clothes torn and covered with golden dust that shimmered faintly in the sunlight. Around him, soldiers were slowly waking, blinking in confusion. The power had returned, but the air was different, heavier, warmer, alive. In his hand, the glowing sphere pulsed gently. Not as bright as before, but steady, rhythmic, like a calm heartbeat. He stared at it for a long time. The Queen's final words echoed in his head. "You, human, are our test. Show them how to listen." He didn't fully understand what she meant, but he could feel something. The sphere wasn't just a tool. It was alive. It could feel him, his heartbeat, his thoughts, his fear, and his hope. When he stood, the soldiers backed away slightly. Some looked at him with awe, others with suspicion. "Doctor," the commander said, stepping forward cautiously. "What happened?" What did that thing do to us? Harris looked around at the colony. No one was hurt. The machines were still standing. The sky was calm again, yet deep inside he could sense something vast. Something watching. She didn't destroy us, Harris said softly. She gave us a chance. The commander frowned. A chance for what? To die slower? To learn, Harris replied. He held up the glowing sphere. Its surface shimmered like liquid gold. This is what she left. A seed of understanding. Maybe it's meant to teach us something. The commander crossed his arms. Or maybe it's a weapon waiting to explode. Harris met his gaze. If it were, we'd all be dead already. The commander said nothing. He didn't have to. Fear was written across his face, the same fear that had led them to fire on the storm. Harris sighed and turned away. Fear keeps us alive, he murmured, but it also keeps us small. He returned to his workshop, the sphere glowing gently in his hands. Everything inside was quiet now. No humming machines, no sparks, no alarms. The only sound was the faint pulse of the sphere like a living heart. He placed it on the table and sat down, staring at it. So, he said softly, you're what's left of her gift. What am I supposed to do with you? The sphere pulsed once, then again brighter. Harris blinked. Wait, you can hear me? The light grew stronger, filling the room with a golden hue. He stood slowly. The air around him changed, softer, warmer, full of faint whispers. Then, the sphere lifted itself off the table and floated before him. Images flickered inside its surface. Stars, galaxies, strange worlds full of color and light. Then faces appeared. Alien faces. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands, all different, all alive. Harris stared, mesmerized. What is this? The images shifted again, now showing human faces. Soldiers, scientists, children, and then him. He saw himself standing beside the Queen, her hand glowing over his heart. Then he saw Earth, and small and bright, surrounded by darkness. A voice filled the air, gentle and familiar. You are connected now. The seed has chosen its keeper. It was the Queen's voice. Harris's heart pounded. What do you want from me? To teach them, the voice said. To help them see what we saw in you. The bond between creation and compassion. The strength of giving without demand. Harris took a slow breath. I'm just one man. One spark can light 1,000 fires, she answered. Show them the way, Dr. Harris. Show them what it means to be human. The light dimmed and the sphere settled back onto the table. For a long time, Harris stood there in silence. He could feel warmth spreading through him, calm, peaceful, alive. His fear faded, replaced by something else. Purpose. When he stepped outside, the morning sun was climbing above the horizon. The colony was gathering, whispering, pointing at the golden dust that still floated in the air. Children were touching it and laughing as it shimmered on their skin. For the first time in days, people were smiling. Harris walked to the center of the courtyard, holding the sphere in his hands. The golden glow reflected in everyone's eyes. This, he said loudly, is not a weapon. It's a message. The crowd fell silent. The Queen didn't come to conquer us. She came to test us and to see if we could rise above fear. And we failed. But she gave us another chance. This sphere, it's a bridge. Between us and them. Someone shouted from the crowd. How can we trust it? Harris smiled faintly. We can't, not yet. But maybe trust has to start somewhere. He lifted the sphere higher. If they can learn to forgive, maybe we can learn to understand. The sphere glowed brighter as if answering him. The golden dust around the colony rose into the air, forming spirals that shimmered in the sunlight. A breathtaking sight that left everyone silent. In that moment, Harris felt something deep inside, not fear, not pain, but connection. The Queen's people were watching. The gift was working, and somewhere beyond the stars, the first true bridge between two worlds had begun to form. Not through war, but through one man's simple choice to heal. He looked up at the sky, the golden light still dancing. We'll make it right this time, he whispered. The sphere pulsed once more in his hand, slow, strong, alive. The gift had been accepted. Weeks passed. Colony 9 had changed, not in structure, but in spirit. The golden dust had faded, yet something invisible remained in the air. A calmness, a quiet understanding that had not existed before. People smiled more. The guards stopped patrolling with their fingers on the trigger. Engineers spoke about rebuilding instead of fortifying. For the first time since humans had landed on this distant world, the colony felt alive, and in the middle of it all was Dr. Samuel Harris. He was thinner now, paler too. The Queen's warning had been true. His life energy was fading slowly, a quiet trade for the life he had saved. Yet he didn't regret it. Every morning he woke to see the colony thriving again, and every evening he watched the sky glow faintly gold, like the Queen's presence still lingered. The sphere, the gift, rested in the center of his workshop. It no longer floated or spoke, but sometimes when the air grew still, it would pulse gently as if listening. Harris had spent days studying it, not as a scientist, but as a student. He had come to understand that it wasn't a machine. It was more like a bridge, something that could feel emotions, thoughts, and memories, something that connected life across worlds. One night as the colony slept, Harris sat alone in the workshop. The power lights dimmed, the air cool. He stared at the sphere, his breathing slow. "Queen," he said softly, "if you can hear me, I think I understand now." The sphere flickered faintly once. "You didn't come here to test our weapons," he continued. "You came to test our hearts. You wanted to see if we could care for someone who wasn't human." The light grew a little brighter as if answering. Harris smiled weakly. "Leary's doing well. She sent a signal through the translator device last week. She said her people are safe and that they remember." He leaned back in his chair, tired but peaceful. "Maybe one day humans will learn to listen before they strike. Maybe this time we'll be ready." He didn't notice it at first in the faint vibration under his chair, the low hum building in the air. The workshop lights flickered and the sphere began to glow again, brighter than ever before. Harris stood quickly. "What's happening?" The sphere lifted into the air, spinning slowly. Golden light filled the room, casting long shadows on the walls. The hum turned into a tone, deep and soft, like a heartbeat echoing through the universe. Then it spoke, not with words, but with visions. Harris saw the stars, millions of them, spreading out in all directions. He saw lines of light connecting worlds, forming patterns like constellations. Each pulse of light was a life, human, alien, all connected. He saw himself standing in the middle of it all, holding the sphere. And then he saw Earth, small, blue, fragile, glowing faintly as one of the lines reached toward it. A voice filled his mind. The Queen's voice, soft and distant. "You have opened the way." Harris swallowed hard. "What do you mean?" "The bridge is built. The message will cross. From your world to ours and beyond. You are the first of many." The images shifted again. He saw other colonies far away, other humans discovering similar gifts. The light spreading, connecting species, creating something new. Understanding. And then he saw himself. Older, fading, but smiling. Surrounded not by machines, but by people, human and alien, working together. He blinked and the images vanished. The sphere floated down slowly until it rested back on the table. He exhaled shakily. "You're sending a message. To them or to us?" The sphere pulsed once, a slow, steady beat. "Both," he whispered. He walked outside. The night sky stretched endlessly, stars glimmering like shards of hope. Then he noticed it. One star pulsing softly, different from the rest. Golden, the same color as the Queen's light. As he watched, more stars began to shimmer in rhythm with it. One by one they flickered, sending signals across the darkness. It wasn't random. It was communication. "They're answering," Harris murmured. His voice trembled, not in fear but in awe. "They're really answering." Behind him, people were stepping out of their homes, pointing upward, gasping. The colony filled with quiet wonder. Children laughed, holding their parents' hands, watching the stars dance. And for the first time in history, humans weren't looking at the night sky in silence. They were listening. The golden light in the heavens brightened for a final moment, then softened. The stars returned to normal, twinkling like before. Harris stood there for a long time. He felt tired, bone-deep tired, but peaceful. His work was done. As he turned to go back inside, a voice echoed faintly in his mind, warm and kind. "You kept your promise, human. You showed them how to listen. He smiled faintly. Thank you, High Queen. Inside the workshop, the sphere dimmed one last time. Its glow faded completely, leaving behind only a faint warmth, the warmth of connection, of life shared across worlds. Dr. Harris sat down in his chair and closed his eyes. The faint hum of the colony machine surrounded him, mixed with distant laughter outside. He rested his hand on the now silent sphere. Let the message travel far, he whispered. Let them know we're ready to meet them as equals. Outside, the stars shimmered again, soft golden lines weaving between them, spreading like threads of light. The bridge between worlds was open, and from that day on, when humans looked to the night sky, they no longer wondered if they were alone. They knew, because one man had listened, and in doing so, he had helped all of humanity speak.